Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Mastering Retention Podcast. Today, we have Luis Cascante with
Yeah,
us,
that's right. Yes.
um, which is super exciting. Normally, I don't actually know what you're doing right now. I think you just decided
Hmm.
you're not going to be at Star Stable, but you most recently were there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we get to talk about all sorts of fun things today. But I know one of the topics that is going to be fun is actually talking about designing games for younger audiences, which will be a lot of fun. But before we
Hmm.
dive into stuff, I always like to ask, and like, Luis, what's your story? Like, how'd you get into games?
Probably similar story to a lot of the people that you have on the podcast, playing games as a kid. Um, but so I grew up in the 80s, let's say. So, and I played a lot of games, and then I studied computer science, and I was hired out of university by Ubisoft. So Ubisoft was starting a new studio in Barcelona. They were a relatively small company back then, so obviously now they're gigantic. But they were just Barcelona. They had some distribution, but they were starting a development studio. And yeah, so I jumped into games. I didn't know, like, it was either that or I could do it was like signals, software for signals for trains. And I was like, maybe I can try games. And so I did that. And I would try it for a year. If it doesn't work, then I can do trains. So so yeah, I was a software developer, more like a generalist than anything else. They actually hired me because I didn't like graphics or physics. They were like, we have everyone that applies who wants to do graphics or physics, and you don't. So we need people. Yeah, we need people that can do other things. I was like, okay, yeah, great. So I did a lot of audio, UI and things like that, and network as well. Like when games were starting to be online. So I'm probably dating myself now, but yeah, it was before online games. And then I stuck with Ubisoft for a long time. The thing is, I love to travel and see how other people worked. So I was just going to other studios and spending time there. And eventually I moved into production. And I worked in production for a while, and smaller and bigger games. And then I saw like there was something that wasn't really sitting well with me. It was like, I'm getting good at delivering things, but I'm not entirely sure if this is what I want to do. So I'm missing something. I'm missing this connection to how am I doing this thing for? Like I don't know. I don't even talk to the players. So I decided to leave like games. I was like, I'm leaving the games industry. And then I was persuaded to join King, which was very interesting because it was completely different culture. It was like, okay, let's just give it a try. And I was doing a different type of work. So I became an agile coach, which is something that I had never done, but I knew a lot about agile development. So, okay, let's just, again, give it a try. And that was super interesting. It was hey, this is actually fun. This is a different way of looking at things and working with like an audience in mind, and in a more like maybe a more inclusive way with like the team. The team had to actually think about like the user, not about the user, think like the user. So it's like, hey, we're not the target audience here, but that is actually a good thing. Like, so we are not making the games for ourselves. We're making games for, middle-aged women who they like to play Candy Crush in bed. So in their iPads. So let's think about what they actually want. And that was really, really good for me. I think I got like this second wind of I want to stay within games. And and then for the last maybe 8 years or so, I've been working on games that have been for kids. So Star Stable is is a games studio here in Sweden, and they do their main product is an MMO for girls, and it's about horses, as maybe you have guessed by the name. And then I also worked at Tokaboka, and they make games. It's not games actually; it's like digital toys for kids. And both companies have been amazing in this idea of like really flipping around the stories. Like, no, we're not making games for ourselves; we're making games for this particular audience. And I really like that.
Yeah, that's super cool. So this will be a lot of fun to talk about. So my oldest daughter is like super into horses. She's just about 5 years old, and so we have 2 horsey games, as she calls them. The first one is Breath of the Wild. Like, instead of actually playing that game, she just likes to capture the horses and ride around and stuff. And the other one is actually one of Star Stable's games. So I guess she's probably your ideal audience. I haven't given into asking to buy things in the game yet, but who knows? Time will tell.
I think maybe 5 years old. She's a bit young, I would say. There is a lot of text in Star Stable, and so it can be a bit hard. So if you play with her, it's okay. And yes, we have an app that is about growing foals into.
That's the game we're currently
that's the
playing.
game
We're not online yet, and so she usually has me read them. Although it has actually been helping her learn to read. Like she figured out what go was between the like stop and go, and which one she wanted to and stuff. So she's got her letters down, but it's that intro reading of like she's starting to put the letters together. So very interesting.
And you should try. Toka Life World has horses in it. There is an entire playset around horses. It's a stable, so that could also be fun. So just promoting the products. Yes,
I love it. So for folks that are thinking about maybe creating games for, say, younger children, or we'll just say like under 13, how would you approach that differently than you would, say, maybe let's go through a couple examples. Let's say me and you today decide we want to start a studio. We're going to start maybe more of a traditional, I don't know, like a puzzle match 3 type game is one. And then maybe let's decide, hey, we're going to make a horsey game that's targeting, girls that are 7 to 13 or something like that. So like, what would one approach look like, and how would that be different for like designing from kids? Because I think there could be a lot to learn here about how you think about your audience.
Honestly, I think both of those games can be actually developed in a similar way. So it's not like it's maybe the first thing before thinking about going into the kids space is to really think if you have a passion for that, because it's hard. So it's actually harder. I think, first of all, there is a lot of, especially if you have something like an app online, anything that remotely is connected to the internet, you have to think about compliance. And there is a lot of stuff that changes if you are working with under 13s, or if you're working with an audience that is actually mixed. So it says you have under and over 13. So you need to think if you really, really want to do it. Like if you think this is an audience that you love, this is an audience that you really have an appetite for delivering something to. And then I would say, when it comes to ideating an experience for kids versus an experience for adults, it's maybe adults can tell you if they like something, but they are going to be, sometimes they're going to lie to you. So you have to find ways to, understand reactions. Kids are going to be dramatically honest with you. They're going to just like, this is shit. And it's like, just throw it away. And obviously not with those words, but they're going to throw it away and they're not going to use it at all. So one of the most interesting parts of working at a company like Toca Boca, for example, that was skewing younger kids, more aligned with the ages that you just mentioned, like 7 to 13, was to see how it was a continuous learning from the kids. So the office is located in front of a school, and then there is a lot of kids coming to the office. Obviously, not during COVID, but before that, it was. If you look at pictures of the office online, you will see that it's very colorful and it looks very fun, and it's in part is aligned with the brand, but it's also so that the kids could come to the office and feel very comfortable, and it's full of toys. So they will come to the office, they will just play with stuff. And then the teams will actually look at that as, what are the kids doing? What do they like? What are they touching? They will make like prototypes that were like paper prototypes or like physical things that the kids could actually touch and actually see if they're interested in that. And then building a lot of prototypes. And it really requires to have a strong sense of will, like the idea that you're going to be wrong. Like it doesn't matter like what your guess is, like the kids are going to love this, you're probably going to be wrong. What happens is that the kids are probably going to love something that maybe you didn't think they would, and that can give you a hint of another thing that you could potentially build for them. And I think it's a lot of trying things. I usually say Toca Life was a premium app franchise. So there was tons and tons and tons of small apps. And if you go to the App Store and you look for Toca Life, they are still there. And then eventually they built a product that is a live service that connects all those apps and enables the company to, produce more content without having to going through the process of acquiring the users every time that they release a new app. And so it's more like it's the product versus the project, let's say. But I think, and I work on the product. I didn't work on those projects, but I think my job was easier because these teams had gone through the pain of figuring out what these kids liked and iterating for years with one product and another and another and another, and then reaching the point where, okay, this works. So let's build something that we can actually operate for the longer term. And yeah, so in Star Stable, I think it's been similar but different. Star Stable did this thing where they built the product in public, let's say. So 10 years ago, 11 years ago, they launched Star Stable, and I think there was like a handful of players, and not very high expectations from even the company themselves that the product will actually be very successful in a broad sense of success. Yeah. But what they did is they promised, we are going to deliver something every week. So they built the product week by week, and the players have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. So they have seen everything. Like they have been exposed to, this is live development. And if you look at a lot of the teams that are doing crypto games these days, they have this approach. And I think it's one of the things that I actually think they are doing well. Like they have this community and they're involving their players in really having some agency around the product. So it's like, hey, let's build this together. And so that's how they did it. And I think you can probably do that with slightly older kids.
Yeah. Why do you think that worked? Was it just like a faster feedback loop, or?
Yes. So definitely that is one of the components. I think you get into the habit. I think sometimes it's tough for the teams to deliver on a weekly basis. And yeah, it is. And at the same time, I don't know, I've been talking to people in, I'm still in touch with, the Agile community. And then I talk to them, it's like, okay, so what are your challenges? It's like, well, the teams are trying to figure out the continuous delivery. And like, well, Stable delivers every week. It's not perfect, can be better, but they actually do that. And I think they failed once that apparently some backend melted down, and it's just like horrible. But other than that, they have been delivering. So it's the feedback. You can see like immediately with the community, they are very vocal. So these kids are not shy. They will tell you everything, and and then you can actually like start to sort of maybe not immediately, because obviously you have plans, and then you're looking at maybe 3 months in advance, something like that, but not immediately. But then you can start shaping and actually seeing how the reaction is going. And for many years, Stable didn't really publish anything about what's coming. So it's like, no, not like, this is the roadmap and we are delivering this. And that's very common in live services these days. And Stable was not doing that. So the players didn't know what was going to be released that week. And that was good, but also bad, because I think like there was an element of surprise, but there was also an element of, this is not what I wanted. So, and this is not enough. Like I wanted more. And so that reaction was very present in the game development team. Like I think some developers actually had to put some distance from the feedback that the players actually had for us, because sometimes it was not very kind. But I think over time actually made it so that the product was better overall. And these days we publish a roadmap. It's just 1 month ahead, and I think we have a better understanding of what works better and what doesn't. And this is a concept of like trying to understand your core audience. So it's like, this is the people that these are the people that we are making the game for. And then we want them to be very satisfied. So Stable is that core, the people that are coming, the players that are coming to the game are people that want to play horses. They want to take care of horses. They want to collect horses. So it's like, maybe it's an obsession about horses that is very well satisfied. And we don't hear a lot of complaints from players about it. Like sometimes they're like, well, this horse animation is not super realistic. It's like, well, we will fix it. But that's the kind of feedback. But on the other side, one of the mechanisms that we have for retention is the storytelling. So we are telling a story as like a fantasy soap opera with like I really love it. Like when I joined the company, I played for 3 months, and I was like, oh my God, what is going to happen next? I want to continue to. And so it was really a very, very interesting story. But we are delivering it chapter by chapter on like almost like a quarterly basis, because producing this kind of content is the most expensive content that we actually produce. So and players actually are like, we want more story. Like, can you give us more story? Like, we want to know what's happening with these characters. And so I think that's interesting in the sense of, okay, so if your core audience is satisfied, you can, without breaking that bond somehow, you can start looking at the smoke signals that are getting from the community to understand what else we need to satisfy in order to expand that core audience and reach like a larger population. Because with these products, we start with a very niche kind of audience.
So Star Stable is kind of like an MMO. So I'm going to reference a little bit of like World of Warcraft here. So do you have similar challenges to World of Warcraft in the sense that there are different player populations that like different things in the game. So like World of Warcraft, you have to have PvP, but different levels of PvP. You have in-game content for like the people that like to raid. Then you have some people that like the stories and like the low levels, and you've got to constantly be like, you can't just neglect all your new players down here, but you also can't neglect all your elder players up here. Like, do you guys have similar challenges?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and yes, so the answer is yes. The way that we plan content, I think these days is something that is following some sort of pattern. So, like on a quarterly basis, we want to provide X amount of story content, X amount of races that is more like competition. So it's like for the people that actually like that. X amount of so like new horse breeds. So it's for the people that actually like to take care of horses. So that's definitely something that we have in mind, and I think that's also something that we have iterated over the years. So when I joined the company, there was a lot of cosmetics. So it was a lot of like clothes and like ways for the players to express themselves. And I think that has gone down because there are many options in the game already. And the players were not really demanding that. They are demanding more quality in those things, but they are not demanding that. So we started to put more emphasis on the story content, like new areas, so expanding the game, and the horses are our mainstay. So players always want like more horses that look beautiful. So there's like here they are. And one thing that we did last year is we promoted someone to game director, and that person actually, she used to be a player, then became like a streamer, then she started working with us in community, and she became a producer, and now she's the game director. She talks to players, she understands the players, she is a player. So and yes, she can actually say, like with her eyes closed, if something is going to hit in a particular segment of the population, because she's been so embedded with this product for so many years. So I think that's definitely something that helps.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. Okay, so let's continue on with kind of our audience building, and then I'm curious to see like what the differences are when we get to the match 3 kind of game.
Okay, yes, I can tell you about Candy Crush. Yes.
Cool. So kind of designing with the player in mind. I imagine, at least based on what I've seen for like these kid-oriented games, like when I launch it for my daughter, like we're hit with a whole bunch of offers immediately in the row, and it seems like a very jarring experience, and it seems like something that wouldn't really make sense. But the only thing that makes sense to me is, well, you launch it because I, as the parent, am likely near the device when it's actually loading before I hand it over to my daughter. Like, is that why you kind of preload all the offers in the sense, because that's really the only chance that you have to actually sell something to parents, basically?
Not entirely sure. Like, I haven't been so involved in the evolution of the Horses app. The Horses app was it was almost like an acquisition mechanism for Star Stable, the MMO, because if you think about it, Star Stable didn't have a presence on mobile, right? So if kids go into the App Store and they look for Star Stable, then they don't find it, or they find an alternative game that is not really Star Stable. So Horses was there. And what we found was it had a gigantic audience. So it had more players than the MMO. So the MMO has a significant population, but it's subscription based, and back in the days it was PC only, PC and Mac. But Horses was more accessible. So in the last year, there, more than that, year and a half, something like that, there has been some experiments running on can this app become a product by itself? So can it be like something that you can enjoy without the connection with the MMO? Because, you know, like the whole appeal of horses, like if you play Star Stable, is that you can race a foal to a grown-up horse and then transfer that horse into the MMO, and then you can play adventures with that. Yeah, so we partner with a company that is free-to-play mobile specialist, and they took ownership of horses. So to some extent, I am thinking that you stumble upon some of the experiments that they have been running. The idea for us is never to be aggressive with monetization. That is one of the things that we like, especially if you're making a product for kids. I didn't mention that before, but some of the levers that you can actually play in like normal free-to-play mobile products, you cannot really apply them to something that is for kids. You can, like if you can live with it, like we didn't want to. So so we have some monetization guidelines that, you know, everyone in the company goes when they join. And one of those is no pressure on the kids. So no, you can do everything. If you want to extend your experience, then you can pay for something, but there is no pressure, no time pressure, no fear of missing out, no like time limited offers, nothing like that. So yeah, but so yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I haven't really looked. Been, as you know, been on a break from the company, so I haven't looked at the horses app for a long time. But I'm assuming that is something like that.
Yeah, I was just curious if that's like the best practice for kids games or whatnot.
I wouldn't say that it would be like, I wouldn't do that. If you look at Toca Life, for example, Toca Life, we decided to not me, like the company as a whole, it's marketing to kids. It's not marketing to the parents. So we really believe that we want to have an honest conversation with the kids on a like this is something for you, and we are treating you as like not as an adult, but we are not treating you like an idiot. So we really believe that you can make your own decisions, and we know from you know, there's a lot of customer research out there saying like your kids actually have the highest influence when households actually purchase things. So yeah, so we're like, we don't need to market to the parents. We are approaching the kids directly. But Toca Life, if you ever use that product, you will see that there's not like that kind of like, here an offer. You have to go to the shop, and the shop in the game is sort of modeled after a Lego catalog. So it's like if you're browsing through boxes of Lego, and then you can see what's inside, how many characters you get, how big it is, and so it's a bit like that. It's like the side of the box in a Lego box that is telling you all those things, and that was the feeling. It was more like you're browsing a catalog. Is not here's everything that you can buy, and then this is for your parents. One of the things that kids games have is parental controls. So for example, kids cannot really buy things. Like it's not like the dark ages of Smurfs Village. That's not that anymore. So you're like, you have to implement, and it's compliance. You have to implement safety checks so that the kids don't buy accidentally anything. So it's by regulation, but it's also, if you are a smart company, you will want to do those things on your own and properly done, like really well done, so that you can build the trust. You want to build the trust with the parents. You might be marketing to the kids, but you need to build the trust with the parents.
That's cool. Okay, well, let's continue on. So let's pretend we're starting a new like match 3 studio, target kind of older women now. How would you approach kind of designing a new game for like this audience?
First of all, let's assume that you have a great team. So let's just start with that.
Of course. I mean, it's us, so we're going to have an all-star team, right?
Yes, we are. Yes. I would say, like, for me, it will be important to acknowledge that we are in a crowded space. So there's a lot of these games out there. So by making something that resembles something else, maybe I'm making some shortcuts and I might be getting to market first, but or earlier, sorry, and then maybe you want to iterate, but I wouldn't do that right away. I would actually start to think about, who is the player here? And it's not, I think, I don't know, women over 45 is too big of an audience. So it's like, let's just narrow it a bit. So who can be a good target for us? And that sometimes comes to knowing someone in your circle that you think you want to deliver a game for. And is, I don't know, someone that is interested in ceramics. So we are going to deliver a game that is going to be something that caters to people that go to ceramics class as a hobby. Just bear with me. And so I'm going to go out and I'm going to find those people. And maybe I know, like, my mom's friend is one of those. So I'm going to talk to that person and I'm going to talk to a lot more of them. I'm going to ask, can I talk to more people in your class? And then I'm going to start talking with people. One of my recommendations is always, have you read The Mom Test? That's it's a book about user research, but it's about interviewing. And I love that method. You don't have to read the book. There is a video online if you want to watch it in 10 minutes. But the book is short and it's super useful. And it's about not asking them, do you want a match 3 game about ceramics? That's not how you do it. Like, you're trying to figure out what do they like in their lives. What are their hobbies? Maybe it doesn't make any sense for them to play a game when they could be, I don't know, just creating some plates at home. So you want to really understand if there is something there. If not, then you can explore different alternatives, but really try to think about needs, interests, hobbies, things like that are either underserved, like there is nothing in the market, or that are poorly served. So there is something in the market, but it could be better. So you can do it better, right? So it's like, and then you also want to understand who is playing that, if there is an existing game, and maybe go to Reddit and try to understand if someone is complaining about something in that game and start with that. Yes. Do you want to understand what is not working so that you can do something better? Because if you are in a crowded space, you really need to either deliver something that is new or a blend of experiences that together have some uniqueness to them, even if they are not new, because everything is invented, or something that is significantly better than what is out there. So
do you think, and here's an approach that I've heard of before, do you think it is a valid approach to find, let's say, women that by all, and I mean, it could be guys too, but I'm going to assume that most women could be Candy Crush players. And could I find women that by all their other accounts, like, they should enjoy this game and they should be playing this game, but they don't? And to try to dig into, well, what don't you like about it? Like, why don't you like the game or something like so? As an example, possibly Homescapes did that, and when they found out that, hey, there's a lot of women that,
Yeah.
kind of like the method, but they're like, there's no like, it's just endless levels. Like, why would I spend my time doing this? And then Homescapes came in and said, well, you spend your times doing this because you're going to renovate your house. Or then Lily's Garden came in and said, you're going to do this so
Yeah.
you can unlock the story and better understand her.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that connecting it to a theme like home renovation, which is something that a lot of female players are actually interested in, is genius. So you are offering something that, I mean, back then there was not that many things. I can't remember anything that was like that combination. And yeah, and then they were using the mastery mechanics, which actually some people can enjoy. Sorry, a lot of people can enjoy, and combine it with an interest that can keep some people coming back. And I think they also expanded over time. The original audience of people who like home renovating. In this case, Playrix, they did a lot of games that were like similar structure, but with different interests connected to the puzzle experience. So I think that they're following that tactic, and it's really working for them. I don't know, like because I have a past of like AAA gaming. I talk to a lot of companies that are trying to go into live services these days, and a lot of them want to do like, let's do an FPS or a battle royale or something like that. I actually tell them that it's like, look for people that are not satisfied with Fortnite. Either you like, because Fortnite is like, I think, a fantastic experience. Like, they are always renewing the experience and making sure that as many people as possible enjoy it. But look for someone that doesn't enjoy it and try to understand what it is that you could potentially do, because we have a lot of like death battle royale games in the market right now.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Can you follow a similar approach with a kids game though? Or like, let's say, would it make sense for me to validate a concept on like Roblox where there's a lot of kids already and maybe UA costs are cheaper or something like that? Like, if we want to make a horse game, would it make sense to spend time studying Roblox, try to talk to those users, maybe do some prototypes on Roblox first? Or
maybe, I don't know. I didn't think about Roblox as maybe a way to experiment, but it makes sense. The Stars Table, we actually talked about, like, does it make sense for us to have a presence in Roblox? And ultimately, we didn't try it because we didn't have the capacity, not because we didn't want to. And but I think that could be a way to understand, because Roblox is so big and they have so many, let's say, like I don't think Roblox is one segment of the population. I think it's just a whole spectrum, and with many different segments there, with people playing different games. So you might definitely find opportunities to test a particular experience, and then maybe if that works, you could potentially take it and develop it as an independent game after. I'm not sure if anyone has done it. Like, I was just trying to think. Do you know of anyone? Or
not really.
no.
I've been thinking about a lot of things in relation to UA recently, especially on mobile, where it seems like mobile UA is just completely borked after IDFA. Like, I haven't seen hardly any games be able to scale up. So whenever I get into this kind of situation, I always think about how do I cheat or rewrite the rules. And so I've been thinking about, other things like that.
No, but you're right. Like, and we're also seeing that. So we have Star Stable had a game on soft launch and mobile game. So it's very challenging to do user acquisition really scale and getting confidence that that game is going to perform well if we do a global launch. So there is a lot of thinking going on around alternatives. So yeah, I can't really say, but there is that problem really exists. I do think that, for example, looking at the status table, the MMO, going back to that, at the beginning of the year, the game released on iOS. So we didn't have the game on iOS, and this is not a mobile game. It's literally a port of the MMO that you have on desktop. But so obviously there was a team that made a great, so the experience is actually good, but it's not a mobile game. It's a game that you play. You can do the cross play with the desktop, and it feels maybe a bit like, if you remember when Fortnite was on iOS, it was not such a great experience. It was obviously, I think it was optimized for desktop and console, but it was still playable, so you can play it. Then, so Status Table Online on mobile is like that, but it is still, when we launched globally, it debuted on #1 in several countries. So especially in the countries where Status Table is big. And I think that was a surprise for people in the industry. They were like, what the hell is this game? Yeah, why is this game #1? And at the same time, I think it gives you an understanding that if you have that community, that is going to give you a push to, it's almost like you have a head start. So if you can actually use that to propel the game in some way, and this works for Steam as well. Like if you have a community and you have gone through, early access betas, blah, 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 and you have sort of like fostered and nurtured this community, when you launch the game, they can actually take it to a place where Steam is going to make, they're going to promote it for you. And the same happened with the Status Table on iOS. So it has had, so I know these days the Apple recommendation doesn't work as well as it used to, but it has been there. And I don't think it would have been if we didn't have the community already before we launched. So I see there's an opportunity, and I see that as, again, something that maybe the Web3 games are actually doing, but I don't see why other games cannot replicate it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Okay, I want to talk just a little bit, last 7 minutes, about subscriptions. Because I feel like a lot of people in gaming kind of scoff at this, and they're like, well, IAP, most of my players, or my revenue is going to come from a small set of players. They just kind of have this expectation. Talk to me a little bit about subscriptions. Where have you seen them work, and where do you see them maybe fall through?
I'm trying to think about products that I've worked that had subscriptions, and I think it's only Status Table. So I can tell you about it from my own experience, but also maybe my thinking. So my thinking is that subscriptions push the pricing a bit higher than maybe lower priced in-app purchases. So there is more friction when you want to sell subscriptions, and that can justify the expense on attraction and channels and things that you may actually want to try. So Status Table has a significant engine around attracting and user acquisition, and we have a great person in the company that has been leading user acquisition for many, many years. And you can say we're lucky because we have an infinite amount of girls. So it's there's new consumers, new customers every year. But I think that expense is actually justified because the main entry point to the entire game is actually a lifetime subscription. So it's almost like you're buying the boxed product. And you can also be subscribed on a monthly basis, and there are other offers. So I think for me, it's maybe a question of diversifying your bets. I know it sounds very, but if you're using attraction channels that are like super low cost, then maybe hey, let's go with ads, or let's go with something that actually makes it sustainable for us to stay in the business. And for if you have a subscription, you might need to spend a bit more in acquisition because there is more friction because of the pricing, depends on the pricing. But I think for me, the essential thing is to find what works for you to make it sustainable, so that you don't go out of business just because nobody that you were attracting was interested in converting to a subscription.
Very cool. Interesting. So, I mean, do you think that Star Stable Online could work without that subscription model? Like if they had more in-app purchases and more of like a free path up to something, or I'm thinking maybe like RuneScape, you can like play for free, but then they have members only stuff that's like more restricted away.
Yes, and we have discussed about that. So and the opposite is also true. Like when I was at Toca Boca, we discussed what a subscription could look like for Toca Life, because right now it's not subscription based, it's something different. And I don't know where the thinking is with Toca Boca these days, but Star Stable, yes, I think the risk is, how do you experiment with that in a safe way? I don't think like you can make a bet, but you sort of like never know what's going to happen until you like put it out there. But we definitely see right now you can play Star Stable up to level 5, so you can play the game for a while. You can stay in the game forever in the starting area, so you can play forever there. You can buy currency, so you can keep collecting horses even if you are in the starting area. But if you want to enjoy like the whole experience, then you need to subscribe. And I think that you could, well, but like that's definitely something that could be done. It's like, let's just get rid of the subscription. But then I think we will actually have the pressure to add more sort of like currency sinks, so that we will promote the activation of an economy that maybe we don't have today. And it could actually force us into a monetization space that maybe we don't like because of the audience that we have. So we really don't want to go very aggressively. We even like in the past, we talked about like, oh, let's just make consumables. It's like, doesn't feel right. Like we don't want to make consumables. Like if you are buying something, like it should be, especially with the hard currency, then it should be a value that endures in the game. So this is going back to that feeling that there are a lot of things that you could potentially do that you are not going to do if you're making a game for kids just because of the audience. Even when you look at metrics, so if you're looking at retention, again, like the topic of your podcast, what is good retention for a game for kids? So you really have to think about it. Like, do I want a kid to be glued to the screen 3 hours a day, 7 days a week? Probably not. So we want them to do other things. So when we design things, we think about like fear of missing out, like that the kids want to go on vacation, and we didn't have a mobile version before, so kids were like sending us messages like, hey, I'm going on vacation and I can play for 3 weeks. How can I get whatever is happening in 3 weeks? And they were, so terrified. So we really need to think about those things. You have to rethink them. And if we are hiring people from the industry at large, and it's an education. Like we have to onboard people properly to say, forget you are an expert, but forget a bit what you actually did in your past life, because your audience is different. So sit down and learn first about what we think is a good experience for kids, what we think is ethically good for kids, and then just, we are pretty sure that you will be able to use your skills to do something that is good for our audience.
Great. Well, I'm sure we could keep going for a long time, but we're pretty much out of time here.
I know,
I do have one last question for you, because we are in the Mastering Retention podcast, of course.
Of course.
And that is, what's one tip or trick or lesson you've learned over the years to, increase player retention? Like, how do you keep your players playing for longer, whether it's days or weeks or months or ideally years, right? How do you keep
I would say I like the idea of developing strong bonds with players. So when I talk about the strategy with people, I usually call the switching costs, the idea that you want to stay in a game, and there are many ways that you can actually achieve that. But one of the things that I like about the games like Star Stable is that we can actually build bonds with the players. So it's like, hey, if you have been taking care of a horse for years, then you have a bond with that horse, or with your stable if you have a collection of horses. So you are going to come back and play with your friends. You're playing with your community, so you are creating bonds with your online friends, the people that are in your riding club, and you're also creating bonds with the characters in our story. So the story is it can become very emotional, and players get an emotional connection to the characters. So and also we have made a great effort to make the characters relatable to the kids. So our characters are very diverse, and there's a lot of representation in what you can find in the game, and that story is evolving all the time. So I think that keeps people coming back in a way that feels safe. So it's going back to the previous question, in a way that doesn't feel like we are promoting some sort of fear of missing out. So this might be a softer touch than other answers that you get.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. If folks do have any questions or they want to learn more, is there a good way for them to get in contact with you?
Probably LinkedIn. I am deadly allergic to social media for some reason. So, but I am in LinkedIn. Yes.
Love it. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Luis.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Tom.